This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week, talking more about educating your audience and just kind of figuring out maybe how to get started, maybe some of the best ways to go about doing it. And I am joined this week by someone who I think has done a really great job at figuring this sort of thing out. She's got just this entire package put together. It's a real focus of her firm's business, and it's done wonders for just how her firm has grown and the impact that it's made in her community. And that is attorney Karalynn Cromeens. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So yeah, quick intro. What's your background? What are you practicing? What all do we need to know about you?
Yeah, so I'm Karalynn Cromeens. I've been a licensed attorney for 17 years, and in that 17 years, I've done specifically construction. It was helpful that I did grow up in the construction industry, so I kind of learned about it there. And then in my last year of law school, actually, I started a material supply business with my husband, so I had some really grassroots experience that I can, that I can meet on the same level of my clients, which I think is hugely helpful. And then, just been running a firm since then. My firm started actually to help the collections of that company and just kind of has grown from there.
Awesome. So yeah, like I mentioned kind of up front, the educational side of your firm's marketing and just kind of how you nurture prospects along is really, really big. Why is it that you went with that sort of focus?
At first I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much information. I should be charging for this, right? But then what I really found is like, the more you put that out there, is first they learn that you're the expert. And then they learn, yeah, I really don't want to do this on my own, right? It's worth hiring somebody to do it, because if you just put it all out there, hey guys, here's the information. I'm telling you what I know. If you want to, you can do it by yourself. And they might start down that road and then they realize, just like me trying to take up marketing. I read a bunch of books and I quickly realized that I don't know what I don't know, and I should probably find somebody that's really good at that.
Yeah. And that's one kind of shift that I've seen a lot more of that's been beneficial, obviously for our business, but just in the way that lawyers market themselves overall. It used to be, like you said, I have all this information. It's very special information. You're not going to get any of it for free. I'm going to charge for all of it. And you just need to basically have faith that I'm going to get the job done. But now what we're seeing is, more and more people like you who they're giving that information away for free. And it's actually, like you said, provided more of a benefit that people realize, like, oh yeah, I really don't want to do this on my own. Please help me out.
No, absolutely. And I wrote a blog article on this, is that for years, and I think it's obviously changing, it's always been the attorney is the man behind the curtain. They use words you don't understand. It's very secretive. And now, we're pulling that curtain back and realizing that we can be a better help for our client if they can understand what we're saying. And it's not some mystery that it is to figure out. No, the things that I know can really help you run a better business. And so let me just lay it all out on the table. And I think, it's so important of pulling back that veil of like, hey, the legal profession is needed, but we're more problem solvers and than we are, lawyers. I mean, the skill that we have is we can see it and we see the issue and how to solve it. And if the client doesn't understand what you're saying, then we're never going to be truly helpful. We're just going to be somebody, and people are tired of paying huge bills for something they don't understand.
Yeah, for sure. So, there are all kinds of different ways to show off that expertise. You mentioned blogging, which you guys do, video, another way to do it. One of the things that you've done, and we've had episodes about why you should be doing this, but I wanted to get your perspective. You wrote a book, you had a book published. What made you decide to go that route?
Well, because when we sat down and said, okay, where are we headed and how do we want to get there and how do we want to resonate with our audience? The book was at the top of the list. And I really, truly didn't know how to do it or how to get there. And then all of a sudden I had all this time open up with COVID to kind of figure it out. And then, at the same, right before COVID hit, I had lost a trial, and not because my client had done something wrong, but because he didn't understand the contract that he had signed. And so I realized what a huge issue that was. And then really just putting it out there as and I have to tell you, it's been a huge propeller for where my business has gone. right?
Yeah.
And then, the book led to being on podcast interviews, which led me to other podcast interviews and speaking engagements and just knowing people around the country. So it really was a great start. Don't get me wrong. I sell like 5 books a week, which is great. You're not going to make $1 million, bajillion dollars off of selling a book, but it's the authority that it gives you when you can say that you're a published author, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge, get you out there in front of a lot of people very easily.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, like in my personal life, like I've written like 20 books just like on history and creative. Like, I'm not going to tell people how many I've sold. I just like to tell people like, hey, I've written 20 books, and people are like, whoa, that's really cool. So, but like, also it's, the selling the books, like you mentioned, that's not the goal. It's the credibility building piece. Could you talk for a second just about your experience in the entire publication process? Like, how difficult was it? How much time, effort, did you end up putting into it? Did you hire someone on your team do it? Like, what was that process like?
No, really. And so when I sat down, I was quite intimidated by the whole process, which I think everybody is. Like, and so I'm like, okay, I can work on the content, but I have no idea. It's like I Google how to self-publish. I'm like, oh. And then so the next thing that popped up was this great company out of Austin called Scribe Media. And I don't know if you mind me giving them a plug, because they really do a great job. He wrote it. The guy that wrote the book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, his name is Tucker Max. And he has wrote the book on how to write a book, basically, and gives you the outline. And very much, he has a 3-day workshop. And it's very much putting you in the right mindset of writing a book, like being afraid of what people are going to say, being afraid that you can't do it, and like dealing with all of those things before you ever dive into the actual outline of writing. Because I think that's a huge part of it, is that, how am I going to write this whole book? And it's, what if people don't like it? What if they put up bad reviews? Oh my, there's just so many things going through your head. You're doubting yourself. And I think that's the first place. And they do a great job. And then they take you all the way through the publishing and help you make Amazon bestseller. They have an add-on where they can help you market through the end of it, which I did the first time, I think anybody, because when you write a book, you're really good at whatever the content is you're writing. You're not good at writing books. They are. And they have a payment plan. It's awesome. You should really do. I mean, if you have anything you ever wanted to write about, it's still a lot of work, but it's such a smooth process. That I would do comparatively.
Yeah, and I would say it's really rewarding at the end. I mean, there's really something that's very gratifying and feels very special about holding a book that has your name on it. And
absolutely.
Something that you can display in your office. People come in and be like, oh, okay, all right, this person's the expert and all of that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you also have a podcast that you do. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the book maybe led into the podcast. How did you then decide to take up podcasting as part of your marketing?
So the book is called Quit Getting Screwed, because I'm dealing with the construction industry, and that is very much their language. And so at the same, I was new to podcasts, and I thought it was like the greatest thing. I'm like, well, I could do that too. And so I have a marketing team that has really helped. And one of the girls was a new hire that had helped somebody else get their podcast off the ground. And so I'm just like, let's try it. Let's see. And so now it's a huge educational platform, and it's got, I'm doing a series right now about the laws in all 50 states. And I have on expert attorneys from across the country about diving into lien laws. And then, it's got, the construction type stuff too, on for those specific guys, which I think you'd be surprised how many people it's a free resource, right? But how many people have reached out to me because they listened to the podcast or something or I was on somebody else's podcast. It just, of all those things you're plugging together to give yourself credibility, it's just another one in the layer.
Yeah. So if I hear you correctly, though, it sounds like you just kind of sit down, press record, start talking, and then you have a good team behind you who gets it produced and published and gets it out there.
Absolutely. They help me, they do all the stuff. There's nothing I couldn't do that. not even if I'm definitely not a tech person at all. Right. It took me a while to get used to Zoom and all this stuff, but having a team that way you can do what you're good at, right? You're good at the interview and pulling up the questions and get the information out. And it's it just becomes a way more streamlined process.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I've been preaching this to our audience for a while, just the importance of podcasting, and that it's really not as difficult as you think, especially if you get some resources around you. So all you have to do, like you do, is just press record and start talking. And so, yeah, really great. So what I think, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about is just, I know you have this big background in construction law, but I mean, even within that, I mean, there are so many different things that you can cover. How were you able to figure out what truly resonated with your audience so that you could do the book, so that you could have a podcast that I know is doing really well? How did you center in and find a way to resonate with your audience on the subject matter that you're covering?
I felt their pain points, right? Through the clientele that I'm dealing with. I could
Yeah.
feel and some of the pain points they knew and some of the pain points they didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Like understanding the contract they signed. A lot of these guys are very trusting, right? So they just sign the contract and then they don't realize how it's going to hurt on the back end. And so so what I do too, when I write articles, it's like, okay, I'm running this business. What do I think? What is important? I'm saying I really break it down to like stepping in their shoes. What things should I be afraid of? What pain point are they experiencing that I can help solve, solve? Because I think that's truly, and then, if I start talking their language, right. And then they're like, oh, I know, what I'm saying, that gives them a level of comfort.
Yeah. And I think that that's a huge key to it, is you're able to speak their language. You are able to kind of separate yourself from the lawyer world to where, because I think that's a big mistake that a lot of lawyers make, is they center their content and they kind of create their content to try to impress other lawyers.
Yeah, no.
And so then it becomes like all of this technical jargon. And then all of a sudden, like the people that you really need to reach, they're checking out because they're not getting anything from it.
No, really. And you really have to write it from like, who is your audience and would they understand what you're saying? Like when I write blog articles, I am not writing for another lawyer. I'm writing for my client. Like, and here's what they would understand. And I'll start it with a story of something that I've went through that they could resonate with. Right. I mean, I think that's just so important, because don't get me wrong, I could talk legalese all day long, but it's not going to get me any clients because they don't know what the hell it means.
Right. Exactly. So like, I mean, what advice would you have for someone, like, let's say, for example, maybe there's a family law attorney who's never been divorced, how do they tap into their audience and really get those pain points like you talked about?
I mean, listen to your clients, ask them.
Yeah.
What was the most painful part about this process? What would have helped you? What, dive into, going through the experience through their eyes. Yeah. And, and how you can help them better, right? And how they can be helped. And, and especially in something like family law, I think there's huge things that you could talk about, because they're so scared, right? Yeah. They're scared in my business as well, but we're only talking about money. They're really scared when it comes down to their safety and their kids, right? So there's fear there that you need to address and find out what the fear is and how you can help comfort them through that.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, and you're a good example of like how, I think one of the more right ways to, I don't think there's only one right way to do it, but like one of the right ways to do it is like you were in that construction world. And so it was a logical step for you to just practice construction law. I mean, you got your law degree. You could have easily gone and practiced business law. You could have easily been a business lawyer because you helped your husband start a business. And so there's a bunch of directions you can go. But, I think, being able to immerse yourself in the world that you're practicing in really does help you resonate with your audience.
No, absolutely. And I think you could do that at any level. Like, even if you didn't know anything about construction, you started practicing construction law but take the time to get to know your clients, like go see their business, go see their operations, and really learn who your ideal client is so you can speak that language, right? Yeah. I'm a lawyer and then I'm a woman. It's already got that kind of going against me. And so, but when I can say, oh, this change order, I can talk the lingo, and they're like, okay, now, that she knows what she's talking about. But exactly. You're going to have to do a little bit more investment on getting to know your client. Yeah.
So kind of switch gears a little bit, because one of the things that really impressed me in how we got connected is, your team sent me kind of your little press kit that you have. And you have a bunch of different stuff on there. You got some speaking things, some book signings, and you've got the fees associated with it. So I think you are a lot farther ahead in your overall branding strategy than I think a lot of other lawyers might be who are going down this expertise route. and really trying to elevate themselves. So I love it. I love that you've got all of that information put together, because it makes, someone like me, makes my job a lot easier to try to figure out, where we can fit in on the show and everything. But how did you decide on your value as an expert when it came to putting that together, and what you might charge for someone who wants you to come speak to them or anything like that?
I Googled other speakers with similar levels. I mean, honestly, I did.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and sometimes I get contacted by associations that don't have the money to pay. And so we'll work a deal of kind of a barter deal, and I'll go speak, and, I'm flexible on it. But that's how I figured it out. Like, somebody new to speaking who hasn't done it before, kind of what are their rates, and kind of went from there. And, we've had several speaking engagements, which is a whole nother ballpark. I mean, as lawyers, we're pretty good speakers anyways, but being in front of a group like that, but it's really been a great eye-opening experience and a great way to get in front of a lot of people at one time. And so, like, there's associations for everything, and they're always looking, they're having events, and they're always looking for speakers. So that's been a great way to get out there on the educational platform. But then when I do it, it's truly educational, right? Yeah. I'm not selling. I'm just talking about whatever topic they want to know about. And don't get me wrong, it always leads to somebody contacting me later on, but it's very much just educational.
Yeah. So we'll kind of end on that note. It's like, how do you put together your presentation? Someone reaches out like, hey, we want you to come speak. Maybe they have a topic that they want you to talk about. Maybe they just want you to come and share your expertise. How do you put together a presentation that, obviously gets your messaging across, but is it engaging enough so that people can get something from it and remember you afterwards?
Yeah. So the key part to that is like, who's going to be the audience, right? And I want to make sure that I'm talking to what they want to know, right? If I'm talking to commercial contractors, I'm diving into the risky parts of a commercial contract. If I'm talking to residential contractors, it's what should be in your contract, right? Very much. Yeah. And so I really dive into what they want to know, right? And then throw in lots of examples. I always want to hear examples of what you've been across in the past and how it worked out. Did it work out? And how, if it didn't work out, what they could have done better, right? And so I don't, usually my presentations are not heavy on text. I kind of give a handout that goes with that, that's got heavier text, but usually just little bullet points to remind me to say, here's the example, here's what this means. And then, like I said, lots of examples. And I always leave time for questions too. I think that's hugely helpful, even in a big group. And because usually if somebody has a question, somebody else has the same question. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned, especially, whether it's a big group or a small group, is that people will have questions regardless. And it's just a matter of, are they warmed up enough to ask them? And so one thing that I've started doing is I will field questions beforehand, maybe privately, especially if we're doing like a webinar or something, like, hey, send me your questions. I'll make sure to get them at the end. And then you kind of have some of those canned questions at the end that you can get the ball rolling. And then that makes people feel a little bit more comfortable sharing,
And I think I usually do something in the beginning too, that makes I'm just another person. I'm a human. We're all humans, right? Yeah. And I don't want them to be intimidated by the fact that I'm up here with all this knowledge. It's like, I'm good at what I do, but you're really good at what you do, and you could teach me, something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I've been talking about for a long time, is people are just naturally intimidated by lawyers. I've told this story a lot. Before I worked here, I had this image in my head that like all lawyers were just like super mean, scary people. And then I got into, I started working with a bunch of lawyers, and it's just like, no, you guys are just regular people. You have specialized knowledge and skills like other people. Yeah. And, and so it's bringing that out and doing everything that you can to really humanize yourself and really make yourself seem relatable.
No, I agree. Because people want experts, but they don't want somebody that they can't relate to or they don't feel comfortable with.
Exactly. Yep. Well, those were all of the questions that I had, and just kind of going through everything. And so, I think that this was really illuminating. I love just kind of the insight and just walking through your process of everything that you put together. How can people check out the podcast and all the other stuff that you got going on?
Yeah, so the podcast is at Quit Getting Screwed on any platform, Apple, Spotify, all the things. The Cromeens Law Firm is a really good example of blog articles and just a lot of content there. And then another website we created is called Subcontractor Institute, which is really my free educational platform that I've built when I was working on launching the books, with a lot of free information there too. So yeah, check out all those places.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just like, well, I'm not a construction lawyer. No, like look at the process and the framework and look at how it was built, because you can absolutely, build something, in your own world that does that. So
we looked at tons of other lawyers that were not construction lawyers when we were doing this.
Right. Exactly. So I do have one final question for you. It's one we ask everyone here on Center Stage, and that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
You need to do marketing. You need to hire somebody to do your marketing. I struggled for years on realizing, I knew that I needed it. I didn't know exact way to go, and you can't just throw money at it. Do your research, find somebody who's talented, who's got the results, get references, talk to their clients. If you want to make it, it is definitely required now. And then find the expert. Don't think you can figure it out. It's a lot more complicated than you think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. It's whether you have like full-time staff, which I know that you do, who handles your marketing, or you're hiring it out to a vendor. Absolutely an important part of running a law firm these days. So that is going to do it for us this week. Really appreciate all the feedback and all of the ratings and reviews that you guys are putting in. If you haven't done so yet, please do leave us a review. It does help. There's a reason we keep asking, and there's has to do with rankings and how more people can see the show and how we can help more people and grow the audience. And so it is important. And so if you have not left a review yet, please do so. But that's going to do it. Karalynn, thank you so much for bringing your insight.
Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/centerstage.